The twin moons of Serveth floated high above the royal city, casting silver light on the crystal towers and wide marble streets. From the highest balcony of the palace, Princess Kaelira watched the stars with quiet longing. She had spent her whole life within the glittering walls, learning the laws of her people, studying diplomacy, and preparing for the day she would rule. Her people called her Starborn, the symbol of peace between the old warrior clans, yet peace was fragile. For months, whispers of unrest had reached her ears, small rebellions in the outer systems, disputes between trade guilds, and most troubling, the Serveth High Council, the group meant to serve the royal family, had been holding secret meetings without her knowledge. That night, she sensed something was wrong. From far below, the sounds of the city seemed strange to quiet. Then, a deep thud shook the air, followed by another. A faint red glow began to spread over the rooftops in the distance. Kaelira's heart quickened. She turned to call for her guards, but only one stood at the balcony door. His armor bore the royal crest, yet his expression was cold. "Your Highness," he said in a flat voice, "you must come with me." Something in his tone made her step back. "What is happening?" she demanded. "There's been an incident," he said, but did not meet her eyes. Before she could ask more, a sudden roar filled the sky. From the far end of the city, black shapes rose into the air, Serveth airships, but not the ones under her command. They moved in formation toward the palace. Kaelira turned to run, but the guard reached for her arm. In that instant, another voice rang out from the shadows, "Step away from her." The balcony door swung wider, and a tall human man stood there, holding a small but deadly-looking energy pistol. His clothes were dusty from travel, and his dark hair was tied back with a simple strip of cloth. The guard frowned. "Who?" The man fired once, hitting the guard's weapon hand. The soldier cried out and dropped his blade. Kaelira stared in shock. You're the human trader from the docking bay." The man gave a small nod. "Captain Elias Vance, and right now. Princess, if you want to live, you're coming with me." Before Kaelira could protest, another explosion shook the palace. This one was closer, and the balcony rail trembled beneath her hands. Shouts echoed from the halls. Not the disciplined voices of loyal guards, but the rough, angry calls of soldiers in revolt. "The council has turned on you," Elias said quickly. "They've blamed you for the unrest in the outer systems. They're saying you sold Serveth's secrets to outsiders, and they plan to remove you before dawn." "That's impossible," Kaelira said, though her voice faltered. "The council swore loyalty to my family for generations. Loyalty changes fast when power is involved." Elias interrupted. "Now move." She hesitated. "Why would you help me? You owe nothing to the Serveth." He gave her a short, grim smile. "Let's just say I don't like watching good people get executed for crimes they didn't." Commit. They moved quickly through the palace's hidden servant passages, Kaelira leading the way. She knew the narrow routes by memory, learned in childhood games. Behind them, the sounds of battle grew louder. The crash of breaking crystal, the hiss of energy rifles, the pounding of boots. Twice, they had to hide in dark alcoves as armed patrols passed. Kaelira's heart pounded, but Elias moved with calm, quick precision. He seemed to know exactly when to step forward and when to wait. Finally, they reached a hidden door at the base of the palace gardens. Beyond it lay the city's underpaths, old stone tunnels built centuries ago, long before the crystal towers died as they slipped inside. Kaelira caught one last glimpse of her home. Flames had begun to spread across the high spires. The airships circled like hunting birds. The once bright heart of Serveth glowed with the red of destruction. She swallowed hard and turned away. The underpaths were dark and smelled of dust and stone. Elias had brought a small lamp, and its light cast long shadows over the ancient walls. They walked in silence for a time, their footsteps echoing. Finally, Kaelira asked, "Where are you taking me?" "My ship," Elias replied. "It's not much, but it'll get us out of Serveth space." "My people will call me a traitor if I flee," she said softly. "They already have," Elias answered. "The only choice you have now is whether you live to prove them wrong." His words stung, but she knew they were true. They emerged from the underpaths near the city's old trade district. The streets were empty except for the distant hum of patrolling drones. Elias led her through narrow alleys until they reached a worn docking platform. There, half hidden under a broken shelter, rested a ship, a small, battered freighter with scorch marks along its hull. "It flies?" Kaylira asked doubtfully. "Most days," Elias said with a shrug. "Today will have to be one of them." They boarded quickly. Inside, the ship smelled faintly of oil and metal, the air thick with the hum of old engines. Elias moved to the controls while Kaylira strapped herself into the co-pilot's seat. The comm unit crackled with the sound of the city's defense channel. She heard the council's orders. "All ships to seize the traitor princess and her human accomplice. They know about you," she said. "Not surprised," Elias replied, his hands moving quickly over the controls. "Hold on." The freighter rose shakily into the air. Almost at once, the Serveth patrol craft appeared. On their scanners. "Can we outrun them?" Kaylira asked. Elias grinned faintly. "No, but we can outthink them." He dove the freighter into the shadow of the tallest crystal spire, weaving between towers. The patrol craft followed, their weapons charging. At the last moment, Elias cut the engines, letting the ship drop behind a maintenance scaffold. The patrols overshot, scanning empty space, before they could circle back. Elias restarted the engines and shot upward, breaking through the city's upper air and into the black of space. Kaylira looked back. The planet shone blue and silver beneath them, the palace now just a tiny shape in the distance. She felt a deep ache in her chest, but also something she hadn't felt in days. Hope. "What now?" she asked quietly. Elias kept his eyes on the stars ahead. "Now, princess, we run. And when the time is right, we fight back." The freighter shuddered as it left Serveth space. Princess Kaylira sat quietly in the co-pilot's seat, her eyes fixed on the streaks of light outside the viewport. The stars passed in long silver lines as the ship moved into hyperspace. For hours, neither she nor Elias spoke. The hum of the engines and the occasional beep of the control panels filled the silence. Kaylira's thoughts kept returning to her home, the towers, the gardens, and the faces of her people. She wondered if they would ever hear the truth about what had happened. Elias finally broke the quiet. "We'll be landing on Arcadia for in a few hours. It's a human colony in the frontier sector. Not the prettiest place in the galaxy, but it's safe. Mostly." Kaylira glanced at him. "Mostly? It's a mining world," Elias explained. "Humans there work hard, live rough, and don't ask too many questions. But the planet also attracts raiders. You need to watch yourself." "I'm not helpless," Kaylira said with a trace of pride. Elias smirked. "Good. You'll need that spirit." When the freighter dropped out of hyperspace, Arcadia fulfilled the viewport. It was a dusty world, half covered in rocky deserts and dry plains, with mountain ranges cutting across its surface. Small settlements dotted the land, each surrounded by metal walls and watchtowers. Elias guided the ship toward a colony known as Ironstead. As they descended, Kaylira could see smoke from the smelting plants rising into the air. Huge cranes moved metal crates between loading bays, and the sound of machinery echoed even from high above. "This is different from Serveth," she said quietly. "Yeah," Elias agreed. "Here, nobody cares about crystal palaces or gold-trimmed halls. What matters is what you can do, and how well you can do it." They landed on a small docking pad near the edge of the colony. The air was warm and dry, carrying the smell of metal, dust, and oil. Kaylira followed Elias down the ramp, her long cloak brushing the ground. People in worn clothes and heavy boots moved through the streets. Some wore welding masks. Others carried mining tools over their shoulders. A few glanced at Kaylira with curiosity, but most kept walking. "This way," Elias said, leading her through the crowded market. Stalls lined the streets, selling food, tools, and parts for ships. Merchants shouted prices, and the sound of haggling filled the air. Kaylira kept her hood up, remembering Elias's warning about bounty hunters. She felt out of place among the rough-spoken miners, but she also noticed something surprising. The people here greeted each other warmly, even strangers. In Servith, every word between nobles was weighed and measured. Here, words came freely, without layers of hidden meaning. Elias brought her to a low building with a metal door. Inside was a small tavern, its walls decorated with old mining helmets and photos of early settlers. A few people sat at tables, talking over mugs of steaming drinks. The owner, a tall woman with short silver hair, looked up from behind the counter. Elias Vance, thought you were dead. Not yet, Mara, Elias said with a grin. Need a room for a while, and maybe some work. Mara glanced at Kalyra. Friend of yours? Something like that, Elias said. We're keeping things quiet. Mara studied Kalyra for a moment but didn't ask questions. Room upstairs, second door on the left. Pay me by the week. As they climbed the stairs, Kalyra whispered, You trust her as much as I trust anyone out here, Elias replied. She's been running this place since before the colony had walls. She's seen everything and knows when not to talk. The next morning, Kalyra woke to the sound of hammering outside. She stepped to the window and saw a group of settlers repairing a damaged watchtower. The work was fast but rough, and every person was involved, men, women, even teenagers carrying tools. She joined Elias in the tavern, where he was finishing a plate of fried bread and eggs. Eat, he said, sliding another plate toward her. Kalyra picked up a fork but asked, What will we do here? We cannot hide forever. Elias took a sip of his drink. We'll stay low until we know who's hunting you. And in the meantime, you're going to learn how to live like a human colonist. She raised an eyebrow. And why is that necessary? Because, Elias said, if the wrong people come looking, you can't just hide behind palace walls. Out here, you fight your own battles. Over the next few days, Kalyra followed Elias through the colony. He taught her how to move through the crowded markets without drawing attention, how to handle basic tools, and how to read the colony's warning signals. The sharp whistle that meant a dust storm was coming, the steady drumbeat that meant raiders had been sighted. At first, Kalyra felt clumsy. Her hands were more used to delicate writing instruments than heavy tools, but she was determined, and Elias noticed her improving. One afternoon, as they walked near the outer wall, the colony's alarm suddenly rang. People dropped what they were doing and rushed to defensive positions. Elias pulled Kalyra toward a watchtower. Raiders, he said quickly, from the tower's top. Kalyra saw a group of armed skimmers racing across the plains. The raiders wore mismatched armor and carried old blasters, but their speed made them dangerous. The colony's defenders, miners, traders, and mechanics took positions along the wall. Elias handed Kalyra a small energy rifle. I've never fired one, she admitted. Then keep your aim steady and follow my lead, he said. The raiders opened fire, their shots sparking against the wall. The colonists returned fire, forcing them to swerve. Kalyra aimed carefully and fired, missing her first shot but hitting the second. One of the raiders' skimmers spun out, throwing its rider into the dust. The fight lasted only minutes before the raiders retreated, leaving behind smoke and broken machines. As the defenders cheered, Kalyra lowered her weapon. Her hands trembled, but not from fear, from the rush of the battle. She had never fought alongside ordinary people before, never stood shoulder to shoulder with those she ruled. Elias clapped her on the shoulder. Not bad, princess. They fight without orders, Kalyra said, still catching her breath. They fight because they choose to, not because they are told to. That's the human way, Elias said simply. Kalyra looked at the people around her, dusty, tired, and unpolished, and felt something shift inside her. These people had no titles, no noble blood, yet they stood together as one. For the first time, she wondered if her own people could learn something from humans. That night, as the colony repaired the damage, Mara approached Kalyra. You handled yourself well today. Not bad for someone who looked like they'd never held a tool, let alone a rifle. Kalyra smiled faintly. I had a good teacher. Mara glanced toward Elias. Keep him close. The frontier changes people, princess, sometimes for the better. Kalyra didn't answer, but she knew Mara was right. Something inside her was already changing. In the distance, the mountains glowed faintly under the twin moons. But Lyra also saw shadows moving far beyond the walls, shadows that might one day come for her. And when they did, she would be ready. The days passed quickly on Arcadia 4. Princess Lyra was no longer just a stranger in the colony. People had begun to recognize her as the quiet woman who had helped fight off the raiders. Still, she kept her hood up when walking through the market. She had not forgotten Elias's warning. Her enemies would not stop searching. It was late afternoon when Elias returned from the trading post with news. He placed a small metal chip on the table between them. "What is that?" Lyra asked. "Message relay," Elias said. "One of Mara's contacts intercepted it from a mercenary channel. Thought you should hear it." He pressed a button, and a cold, mechanical voice spoke. "Bounty alert. Target, Princess Lyra of the Serveth Dominion, accused of treason. Large reward for live capture. Last known movement, near Arcadia Sector. Suspected to be traveling with human male. Name Elias Vance." Lyra felt her stomach tighten. "They know we are here." "Not exactly," Elias said. "They know we might be somewhere in this sector. But that's close enough to be trouble." She looked down at the metal chip. "So, what do we do?" Elias leaned back in his chair. "We stay ahead of them, and there's a chance to get some answers." "What kind of answers?" "There's a human scout named Rin who was caught spying near Serveth space last month. Word is, he's being held by a gang in the Canyon lands. And he knows things, including which council members are behind this mess." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "If he has that knowledge, then we must free him." Elias nodded. "Exactly my thought. But it's not going to be simple. The Canyon lands are dangerous. And the gang holding him, they don't just hand over prisoners." Lyra straightened in her seat. "Then we won't ask. We will take him." The next morning, Lyra and Elias prepared for the journey. They wore rough mining clothes to avoid attention, and Elias gave Lyra a wide-brimmed hat to hide her features. They left Ironstead on Elias's small hover transport, the wind carrying dust in every direction. The land stretched out into endless plains, broken by sharp cliffs and deep ravines. Lyra had never seen such terrain. Serveth worlds were carefully shaped and cultivated. Nature was always tamed. Here, nature was wild, and survival felt like a constant battle. By midday, they reached the edge of the canyon lands. The ground dropped away into a maze of stone, shadows stretching across the deep cracks. "This is where they're keeping him," Elias said. "Somewhere in those canyons." "How will we find him?" Lyra asked. "Carefully," Elias replied. They hid the hover transport behind a ridge and continued on foot. The air was cooler here, and the sound of the wind echoed through the rocks. After hours of moving through narrow paths, they spotted movement ahead. 3 armed figures wearing mismatched armor, walking along a ledge. Elias pulled Lyra into the cover of a large boulder. "Scouts from the gang," he whispered. "Means we're close." They followed the scouts from a distance until the path opened to a small settlement. Built into the canyon wall, crude metal walkways connected the caves, and dim lights flickered from inside. Ira studied the scene. "They are not many," she said quietly, "but the high ground will be hard to take. That's why we're not going in from the front," Elias replied. They waited until nightfall. Under the light of Arcadia's twin moons, the canyon looked like a silver and black maze. Elias led Lyra along a hidden path above the gang's base. From there, they could see a metal cage in the center of the camp. Inside sat a man with a thin face, his hands bound. "That's Rin," Elias said. Lyra took a deep breath. "Then we move." They climbed down silently, using ropes to avoid making noise. The camp was quiet, most of the gang asleep. 2 guards sat by a fire near the cage, speaking in low voices. Elias signaled Lyra to take the left guard while he took the right. She nodded. When the moment came, they moved as one. Lyra swung her staff, striking her target's weapon hand and knocking the blaster away. Elias grabbed the other guard, pulling him into a quick hold until he went still. They reached the cage. Rin looked up, his eyes sharp despite his worn face. "Who are you?" he asked. friends. Elias replied, cutting the ropes that bound his hands. We don't have time for questions. But before they could leave, a shout rang out. More gang members spilled from the caves, weapons ready. Kalyra grabbed a fallen blaster and returned fire, covering Elias and Rin as they ran toward the canyon's edge. The gang chased them, shots sparking against the rocks. This way, Elias shouted, leading them up a steep path. A rock exploded near Kalyra's foot, but she kept moving, her heart pounding. Finally, they reached the rope they had used to climb down earlier. Elias went up first, then pulled Rin after him. Kalyra followed, her hands burning as she gripped the rope. Below, the gang members shouted in frustration as they realized they couldn't follow quickly enough. When they reached the top, Elias pushed over a large boulder, blocking the path. That'll slow them down. They returned to the hover transport and sped away under the moonlight. Only when the canyonlands were far behind did they slow. Rin sat in the back, rubbing his wrists. You risked a lot for me. Why? Because you have information, Elias said, about Serveth and about the people who betrayed her. He nodded toward Kalyra. Rin studied her for a moment, then said, the council has made deals with off-world factions. They wanted you out of the way because you refused to approve the weapons trade. Kalyra's eyes narrowed. So they would sell our honor for profit. Rin nodded grimly. And they've hired bounty hunters from 3 different systems to bring you back. Elias glanced at Kalyra, which means we've got more trouble coming. They reached Ironstead just before dawn. Mara was waiting at the dock, arms crossed. You've been gone all night, she said. Word is, bounty hunters have been seen in the northern ridge. Kalyra exchanged a look with Elias. They are getting closer. Elias nodded. Then we'll have to be ready. We can't keep running forever. For the first time since she left Serveth, Kalyra felt a strange mix of fear and determination. Her enemies were coming, but so was her chance to fight back. She was no longer only a princess in hiding. She was a warrior learning to survive on a human world. And soon, the council would see what that truly meant. The morning sky over Arcadia Fort was heavy with clouds, casting a gray light across Ironstead. The colony's usual sounds, hammers, market voices, the distant hum of mining drills, were quieter than normal. Word had spread that a fleet was approaching. Elias stood near the outer wall, binoculars in hand, scanning the sky. Kalyra joined him, her hood pulled low. Anything yet? She asked. Not yet, Elias replied, lowering the binoculars. But they'll be here before sunset. Mara had already called for a meeting in the town hall. The building was small but sturdy, its walls reinforced with metal plates from old mining machines. Inside, dozens of colonists had gathered, their faces tense. Governor Thane, a broad-shouldered man with a deep voice, stood at the front. A Serveth fleet is entering our system, he announced. Their message claims they come for peaceful negotiations, but we all know why they're really here. Whispers ran through the crowd. Kalyra could feel eyes turning toward her, though most didn't yet know her full story. They want the princess, Thane continued. If we hand her over, they'll leave us in peace. If we don't, we risk war. Kalyra stepped forward before Elias could stop her. If giving me to them will protect Arcadia, then I will go. A murmur swept through the room. Elias shook his head sharply. No, that's exactly what they want. And once they have you, there's no guarantee they'll leave the colony alone. People like that take what they want, then take more. Mara crossed her arms. Elias is right. The Serveth aren't known for mercy. Governor Thane frowned. We're not equipped for a fight with a fleet. We have no capital ships, no heavy weapons. All we've got are ground defenses and stubborn miners. Elias smiled faintly. Sometimes that's enough. Later, in the quiet of the tavern, Elias and Kalyra sat across from each other. A map of the colony was spread between them. They'll probably land troops near the open plains east of here, Elias said, pointing. It's the only place wide enough for their dropships, and if they land there, Kalyra said, studying the map, they'll have a direct path to the colony gates. Elias nodded. Which is why we can't let them reach the gates. She looked up at him. You mean to fight? I mean to make them regret coming here, Elias replied. But you need to decide where you stand. If you leave now, you might survive. If you stay, you'll be a target." Kaelira's hands curled into fists. "All my life, I was taught that duty meant standing for my people, but my own people betrayed me. These humans, your people, have stood by me without asking anything in return. If I am to fight, I will fight for them." Elias gave a small, approving nod. "Then let's get to work." The next hours were filled with preparation. Colonists gathered whatever weapons they had, old rifles, mining explosives, even heavy tools that could be used in close combat. Teams set up barricades along the main road and placed signal flares in case the outer scouts spotted movement. Kaelira worked alongside them, helping to move crates and load ammunition. She noticed how the humans talked and laughed even while preparing for battle. It was a kind of courage she had never seen before. Not the courage of soldiers ordered to fight, but the courage of free people defending their home. As evening approached, the sky darkened. The first distant shapes appeared, sleek Serveth ships cutting through the clouds. "They're here," a scout called from the watchtower. The colony went silent. Every person took position. The Serveth fleet descended in perfect formation, their engines glowing pale blue. 3 dropships broke away from the main group, heading toward the eastern plains exactly as Elias had predicted. Kaelira watched from the wall as the dropships touched down and their ramps lowered. Dozens of armored Serveth soldiers marched out, their weapons gleaming in the fading light. At their head walked a tall figure in ceremonial armor, Counselor Varen, one of the men who had once sworn loyalty to her father. Varen's voice carried through a loudspeaker. "People of Arcadia 4, we come only for the traitor Kaelira. Hand her over, and no harm will come to your colony." Elias stepped up to the wall, calling back, "You'll get nothing from us but a fight." The soldiers began to advance. The battle began with the sharp crack of rifle fire from the walls. The Serveth troops moved in disciplined lines, their energy shields glowing faintly. Elias signaled for the first line of explosives to be triggered, a row of buried charges that exploded in bright flashes, throwing the enemy's front line into chaos. Kaelira, wearing human battle armor over her cloak, joined the defenders. On the wall, she fired carefully, aiming for weak points in the Serveth shields. The colonists fought fiercely, using every scrap of cover. But the Serveth soldiers were well trained, and they pushed forward step by step. "We can't hold them at the gate," Mara shouted. Elias nodded toward Kaelira. "Time for the second plan." The second plan was risky, while the main defense held the enemy's attention. Kaelira led a small group of fighters out through a hidden service tunnel that emerged behind the Serveth lines. Moving through the shadows, they struck at the supply packs and communication gear the soldiers had left near their dropships. Kaelira's heart pounded as she disabled a comm relay with a precise shot. The enemy turned in confusion, some breaking formation to protect their rear. From the wall, Elias saw the opening and shouted, "Push forward." The colonists surged out of the gate, forcing the Serveth troops into a split battle. Some facing the humans in front, others turning to face Kaelira's group behind them. The fight was fierce. Sparks flew from clashing weapons, and dust rose from the ground as boots and metal met. Kaelira found herself face to face with Varen. "So it's true," he said coldly. "You choose to fight for these miners instead of your own people." "They are my people now," Kaelira replied firmly, "and they fight with more honor than you ever did." Varen's eyes narrowed. "Then you will fall with them." Their duel was short but sharp. Kaelira's training and her new knowledge of human tactics gave her an edge. With a swift strike, she disarmed him, sending his weapon clattering to the ground. Seeing their leader fall, the Serveth soldiers hesitated. Elias, spotting the moment, called for the colonists to press the attack. The Serveth line broke, and the surviving soldiers retreated toward their dropships. The colony defenders stood together, breathing hard but victorious. Kaelira looked at the people around her, tired, dust-covered, but smiling. She knew then that her choice had been the right one. That night, as the wounded were tended and the barricades repaired, Governor Thane approached her. "You had the chance to leave. You stayed. You fought. You've earned our respect, Princess." Kaelira shook her head. I am no longer a princess. I am one of Arcadia's defenders. Elias stood beside her, smiling. Well, defender, you just sent a clear message to the council, and something tells me they won't forget it. Kaelira looked out toward the horizon, where the Serveth fleet had disappeared into the night sky. Let them remember, she said quietly, because this is only the beginning. The sun rose over Arcadia 4, spilling warm light across the dusty plains. The colony of Ironstead was quiet after the long night. Smoke still curled from the barricades, and scorch marks lined the walls where Serveth weapons had struck. Kaelira walked slowly through the main street, nodding to the tired but smiling colonists she passed. Some were repairing damaged walls, others tending to the wounded, but all moved with a sense of pride. They had stood against the Serveth and won. Elias found her near the market square. You didn't sleep, he said. Kaelira shook her head. I wanted to see the colony in the morning light. It feels different now. It is different. Elias replied, Yesterday, this was just a frontier town. Now, it's the place that sent the Serveth fleet running. She allowed herself a small smile. And they will not forget it. No, Elias agreed. And neither will you? Later that day, Governor Thane called for a meeting in the town hall. The room was full. Miners, traders, mechanics, even children who wanted to hear what would happen next. Thane stood at the front, his voice steady. We faced the Serveth and held our ground, but we must be ready for the future. They may return in greater numbers. We'll need better defenses, stronger alliances, and clear leadership. Mars spoke up from the side. And what about the princess? The Serveth will still want her. All eyes turned to Kaelira. She stepped forward, removing her hood so everyone could see her face. I am Kaelira of Serveth, she said, her voice carrying through the hall. But I no longer serve the council that betrayed me. I stand with Arcadia now. If the Serveth come for me again, I will not run. I will fight, not as your guest, but as one of you. The room was silent for a moment, then filled with applause and cheers. In the days that followed, Kaelira worked alongside the colonists. She learned to operate mining equipment, to handle communications gear, and to repair damaged defense turrets. She trained daily with Elias, improving her marksmanship and learning human combat techniques. One afternoon, while practicing in the yard behind Mara's tavern, Elias tossed her a rifle. You've improved, he said. Fast aim, steady hands. You pass for a born colonist now. Kaelira caught the rifle and smiled faintly. A few months ago, I could not even imagine holding one. Now it feels natural. That's because you've chosen it, Elias said. Here, nobody forces you to fight. You fight because you believe in something. Despite the calm, Kaelira could sense an undercurrent of unease. Rin, the rescued scout, often came to her with updates about Serveth movements in nearby systems. One evening, he approached her table in the tavern. I've heard from my contacts. The council is divided. Some want to send another fleet. Others are wary after their defeat here. Kaelira considered this. That means we have time. Time to prepare and to send our own message. Elias leaned forward. What kind of message? One that says Arcadia is not just a mining world, she replied. It is a place that stands free. If they attack again, the galaxy will know it was the Serveth who brought war to a peaceful colony. Mara smirked. Sounds like you're thinking like a human already. The turning point came 2 weeks later. A small Serveth courier ship appeared in the system, broadcasting a single transmission. It was a formal notice from the council. Return to Serveth willingly to face judgment. Refusal will be seen as confirmation of guilt. Elias slammed the message console shut. They're still trying to make you come quietly. Kaelira's eyes narrowed. Then they will learn that I'm no longer theirs to command. She walked out to the market square, where the colonists were gathered. The Serveth have sent for me, she announced. They expect me to kneel before their false judgment. I will not go. If they wish to take me, they will have to face Arcadia again. And this time, we will be ready. Cheers rose from the crowd. Someone began to chant her name, and soon the whole square was shouting, Kaelira, Kaelira. Preparation became the rhythm of life. The colony built new barricades, reinforced the walls with metal plating, and installed stronger turrets. At the gates, hunters from the nearby hills came to offer their skills, and traders brought spare parts and supplies in exchange for protection. Kaylira was at the center of it all, working beside miners in the heat of the day, standing watch at night, and leading training drills at dawn. Her fine robes were long gone. She now wore the same practical gear as any other Arcadian fighter. One evening, while standing watch on the wall, Elias joined her. "You've changed," he said quietly. Kaylira looked out at the dark horizon. "Maybe. Or maybe I have simply found the person I was meant to be." Elias chuckled. "Well, whoever you were meant to be, the Surveth are going to regret making you their enemy." The next challenge came sooner than expected. A long-range scout spotted 3 Surveth ships on the edge of the system, smaller than the last fleet, but still a threat. The colony went on alert. Defenders took their positions, and the turrets powered up. But this time, the Surveth ships did not approach the planet. Instead, they stayed in orbit for several hours before leaving without a shot. It was a test, a way to measure the colony's readiness. "They'll be back," Elias said as the tension eased. Kaylira nodded. "And when they are, we will be ready." Weeks later, Kaylira stood on the balcony of the governor's hall, looking out over Arnstead. The sun was setting, painting the sky in gold and red. The colony below was alive with movement, people, laughing, trading, repairing equipment. Training Elias stepped up beside her. "Beautiful evening." "Yes," Kaylira said softly. "When I first came here, I thought I had lost everything. Now, I see I have gained something far greater." Elias smiled. A home," she agreed, "and a people worth fighting for." That night, the colony held a gathering in the square. Music filled the air, and lanterns glowed along the streets. It was not a celebration of victory, but of survival, unity, and hope. When Kaylira stepped forward, the music quieted. "I was born a princess of the Surveth Dominion," she said. "But titles mean nothing without loyalty, and loyalty means nothing without honor. I found no honor in the council that betrayed me. I found it here, in the people of Arcadia." She paused, looking over the crowd. "From this day forward, I choose the human path, a path of freedom, resilience, and standing together against any who would take that from us." The crowd erupted in cheers, and Kaylira knew, deep in her heart, that she had made her choice forever, somewhere beyond the stars. The Surveth Council might still plot her downfall, but she was no longer the same woman who had fled her burning home. She was Kaylira of Arcadia, and that was a name they would learn to fear.